The first time her ex showed up, I didn't think it was a problem. She said it would be quick. Just a bag. Just a few things he forgot when he moved out. She said it like she was talking about picking up a package. Like it was nothing. I remember where I was standing when she said it. In the kitchen, holding a mug that was still too hot, watching the late evening light spill across the counter. I had just gotten home from work and my brain was still buzzing from traffic, deadlines, that dull pressure behind the eyes that comes from carrying too much all day. "He's coming by," she said, "quick. He just needs to grab a few things." I nodded, because I didn't want to be the guy who panics at a name. I didn't want to be the insecure boyfriend who acts like every shadow is a threat. I was trying to be calm, mature, trusting. The kind of man who doesn't flinch when the past knocks on the door. And at first, it really did feel quick. There was a knock, then the sound of the lock turning, and she opened the door with a neutral face. Not excited, not uncomfortable, just neutral, like she was opening the door for a delivery driver. He stepped inside like he belonged there, like he'd walked through that doorway 1,000 times because he had. His eyes scanned the room like he was checking what had changed, what had been replaced, what had been upgraded. And the way he looked at me wasn't aggressive. It wasn't even rude. It was worse than rude. It was amused, like I was a temporary piece of furniture. He muttered a quick thanks to her, didn't even look at me again, and went straight down the hall. Shoes on, no hesitation, no pause at the threshold like someone who feels like a guest. It was just step, 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 like he was walking back into his own life. He came out carrying a gym bag, nodded once, and left. 10 minutes, maybe. She shut the door and shrugged, like she'd proven a point. "See?" she said with her eyes. "Nothing to worry about." I didn't say anything. I just went back to my mug and tried to let my nerves settle. But the problem with pretending something is nothing is that your body still remembers it was something. The next visit happened 2 days later. This time, it was a hoodie. "One hoodie," she said. He forgot it. He's annoyed he has to keep coming back. I remember thinking, annoyed. Of course he's annoyed. The inconvenience of retrieving pieces of his life from a home he no longer lived in. Like the world owed him an easier ending. Again, I stayed calm. Again, I nodded. Again, I told myself it was normal. People forget things. Breakups take time to untangle. It didn't mean anything. He showed up at almost the same time. Same knock, same keys. The keys part caught me off guard. She didn't even reach for her own set. She just held the door while he unlocked it himself like he never gave them back. It was a small detail. The kind you can argue about. The kind you can pretend doesn't matter. But it mattered. He walked in, eyes sliding over the room again, and I noticed something else. He didn't glance around like he was seeing it for the first time. He glanced around like he was remembering where things used to be. He went into the bedroom. Our bedroom. And I stood in the hallway pretending I wasn't listening. I heard drawers opening, the soft thud of clothes shifting, the sound of a closet door moving. And when he came back out, he wasn't holding one hoodie. He was holding a handful of things. A hoodie, a t-shirt, a belt. He said something to her under his breath and she laughed quietly like she was being reminded of a joke from another lifetime. Then he left. This time it was 20 minutes. That night, I asked her gently why he still had keys. She frowned like I'd insulted her. "Because I never thought to take them," she said. "It was a messy breakup. It didn't feel important. I didn't push. I wanted to, but I didn't." I told myself I was being reasonable, that I could be flexible, that I could give a person room to clean up their past without making it my problem. The third visit happened the following week. She didn't even warn me this time. I came home and his car was in our spot. Our spot. I stood there for a moment, gripping my steering wheel, feeling that sudden drop in my stomach. That sinking, heavy feeling you get when you realize you are about to step into something you didn't agree to. I walked inside and found him sitting on our couch, legs spread, remote in hand, watching something on TV like he was home alone. She was in the kitchen, stirring something on the stove, and she didn't look surprised to see me. She looked casual, like this was already normal. "Oh, hey," she said. He needed to stop by again. I looked at him. He looked at me with that same amused expression, the same relaxed posture, like he was daring me to make it awkward. I set my keys down slowly, then asked, "What's he still doing here?" He raised the remote slightly, like a salute, like he was acknowledging my presence without respecting it. She smiled too quickly. He had a few more things. Then we got talking. "It's not a big deal. Not a big deal." I remember walking into the bedroom, closing the door, and sitting on the edge of the bed just to breathe, just to slow my heartbeat. Because my body knew before my brain admitted it. This was becoming something. It wasn't about forgotten items anymore. It was about comfort, familiarity, space. He wasn't picking up leftovers from his old life. He was testing how much of it he could take back. When I came out, he was still there, still relaxed, still not moving. He finally got up when she told him she was almost done cooking. Cooking. She was making dinner while he sat on our couch. And I did something I'm still ashamed of. I stayed. I sat at the table, I ate, I listened to their easy rhythm, their shared memories, their small comments that didn't include me, their laughter that came too naturally. I laughed once too, just to prove I could. But inside, I felt like I was sitting at a table that belonged to someone else. After he left, I asked her, more firmly this time, why he stayed for dinner. She sighed like I was exhausting. "Because he was hungry," she said. "Are you really jealous over food?" It wasn't jealousy. It was boundaries. It was respect. It was the way she didn't see the difference. I went to bed that night with my jaw tight and my thoughts loud. The fourth visit was the one that broke something in me. It was a Saturday. I had plans. I was going to run errands, hit the gym, come back and spend the afternoon with her. I wanted normal. I wanted us. When I walked into the living room, she was on the phone. Her voice was soft in that familiar way. The way she talked when she didn't want someone to feel uncomfortable. The way she talked when she was trying to keep someone close. When she hung up, she said, "He's coming by, just for a bit." I didn't say anything. I just stared at her. She noticed. "What?" she asked. I exhaled slowly. "You said that every time." Her face hardened for a second, then smoothed out again into something patient, like she was dealing with a child. "He's just grabbing his last few things. After today, it's done." That word hit me. Last. Because if it was last, why had it taken 4 visits? If it was last, why did he still have keys? If it was last, why did he look so comfortable? If it was last, why did she talk about him like he was still part of our schedule? He showed up at noon. This time, he walked in without knocking. He opened the door like he'd never stopped living there. I watched him do it, and something inside me went quiet. He didn't even pretend to be polite. He went straight down the hall again, into the bedroom again, and started opening drawers. I followed him. I stood in the doorway and said, "What are you doing?" He looked over his shoulder, slow, like I was interrupting him mid-thought. "Getting my stuff," he said. Calm, like that answered everything. I stepped closer. "You can't just walk into our bedroom." He smirked. "Our bedroom," he repeated, like he was tasting the words, like he wanted to see how they sounded in my mouth. Behind me, she rushed in. "Stop," she said. "Both of you. Don't make this weird. Weird. Like I was the one creating the problem." I looked at her. "He's in our bedroom, going through our things." She rolled her eyes. "He's not going through our things. He's getting his things." I stared at her, trying to understand how she didn't hear herself, how she didn't hear what she was allowing. Then he did the final thing. He opened her nightstand, the one on her side, and he pulled out something small, something tucked back in the corner. A photo, a folded photo. He stared at it for a second and his smile softened. Not in a kind way, in a possessive way, like he'd just found proof. He looked at her and said, "You kept it." Her face flushed instantly, like she'd been caught. And the way she looked at him wasn't annoyed. It was nervous. It was intimate. It was familiar. I felt my chest tighten. I stepped forward and said, "That's enough. Get your stuff and go." He looked at me again, amused, like he'd been waiting for me to finally grow a spine. Then he said, "I'm almost done. Relax, relax. In my home, in my bedroom, with his keys." I turned to her. "Tell him to leave." She didn't move. She didn't speak. She just looked at me like I was asking her to pick a side in a game she didn't want to admit she was playing. And that was the moment I saw it clearly. He wasn't the problem. She was the door. She was the one holding it open. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I just stepped back and said, "Fine." They both looked at me, waiting. I walked into the closet and pulled out a bag. Not his bag. Mine. I started filling it without thinking. Jeans, shirts, toiletries, charger. Behind me, I heard her voice sharpen. "What are you doing?" I didn't answer. She moved closer. "Are you seriously doing this right now?" I zipped the bag. "Yes." Her eyes widened like she couldn't believe it. Like she had expected me to keep swallowing it. Keep adjusting. Keep making room. Her ex was still in the bedroom, holding that folded photo like it was a trophy. I looked at him once. Then I looked at her. "You told me it would be quick," I said. "But you've been letting him come back piece by piece like he never left." She opened her mouth to argue. I held up a hand. "Don't." My voice was calm, and that scared her more than anger. Because calm means decision. I walked past them, down the hall, into the living room. I grabbed my keys, my wallet, and my jacket. I moved like I was on autopilot, but inside I felt strangely clear, like my brain had finally stopped negotiating. She followed me to the door. "You're overreacting," she said. "He was just picking up his stuff." I turned to face her. "No," I said. "He was moving back in." Her mouth fell open. "That's insane." I nodded. "And you let it happen." She reached for my arm. "Don't do this, please." I stepped back. "I'm not doing anything to you," I said. "I'm finally doing something for me." Her eyes filled with tears immediately, but I didn't feel guilty. Not like I used to. Not like she expected. Because tears don't erase choices. I opened the door. Behind her, I heard him say something quietly. Something she smiled at through her tears. And that confirmed everything. I walked out. I drove to my brother's place and sat on his couch staring at a blank TV screen for almost an hour. Not because I didn't know what to do, but because my body needed time to catch up with the fact that I had finally stopped accepting less. That night she called 20 times. I didn't answer. She texted me paragraphs. I didn't respond. In the morning, I went back, not to negotiate, not to beg, not to fix, just to pick up the rest of my things. I showed up with boxes and a friend because I wasn't going to do it alone. I wasn't going to give her the chance to soften me, to confuse me, to pull me back into the same pattern. She opened the door, and for a second she looked relieved, like she thought this was the part where I returned. Then she saw the boxes. Her face crumpled. "Wait," she said. "You're really doing this?" I nodded. "Yes." Her voice broke. "He's not staying. He's not even here. You're making it bigger than it is." I looked past her, into the apartment. His shoes were by the door. Not a bag, not a random item. Shoes, 2 pairs, like someone who planned to stay. I pointed at them. She followed my finger and froze. She didn't know what to say. I didn't either, because there was nothing left. I walked in, collected my things, and didn't let myself linger. Every object I touched felt like a piece of a life I had tried to build with someone who kept leaving the door open to her past. When I reached the bedroom, I saw the folded photo again, sitting on the nightstand, no longer hidden. Like it didn't need to be hidden anymore. I didn't pick it up. I didn't ask questions. I didn't need answers. I took my last box, walked out, and shut the door behind me. Outside, the air was cold and clean. I inhaled deeply like I was breathing for the first time in weeks. I got into my car, and for the first time since he'd shown up, I didn't feel tension in my shoulders. I felt something else. Relief. Not because it didn't hurt. It did. But because I finally stopped competing with someone who never really left. A few days later, she sent one last message. I never meant for it to happen like this. I didn't realize. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed back, "You didn't realize because you never wanted to." And I blocked her because sometimes the turning point isn't a betrayal. Sometimes it's the moment you stop making excuses for it. Sometimes it's the moment you realize you don't have to fight for space in your own life. And you leave, not because you lost, but because you finally refuse to keep living like a guest.